Sir, this isn't your first mortgage. I frowned at the woman on the phone. I'm sorry? There was a pause. Then she repeated it. You currently have 2 active mortgages secured against the property. My grip tightened around the envelope lying open on the kitchen counter. No. That wasn't possible. Before we go any further, subscribe to Family Betrayal Verdict, because sometimes the smallest envelope destroys the biggest lies, and sometimes the person standing beside you is the one holding the knife. I think you've got the wrong file. I wish we did, Mr. Carter. I looked through the front window. My wife, Emily, was kneeling beside the flower beds, smiling while planting fresh lavender along the walkway. She looked peaceful. She looked like the woman I'd trusted for 14 years. She looked like someone who couldn't possibly be hiding another mortgage. The bank representative cleared her throat. Would you like me to verify your address? I answered automatically. She read every detail correctly. Our address. Our purchase date. Our primary loan. Then she mentioned another loan. Opened 11 months ago. The words barely reached me. It felt as though the room had suddenly become smaller. My heartbeat echoed inside my ears. I never signed another mortgage. I understand your concern, sir. No. I swallowed hard. You don't. The envelope had arrived with the morning mail. Plain white. No warning. No bold red letters screaming overdue payment. Just a quiet notice informing me that the second mortgage payment was now 31 days past due. At first I'd laughed. I thought it belonged to another homeowner. Then I saw my name. Every letter. Every number. Perfect. Except for one impossible sentence. Failure to bring your second mortgage current may result in legal action. I remembered standing in the hallway for almost 5 minutes staring at those words. The paper felt unusually heavy against my palms. I even checked the mailbox again, convinced there had been some ridiculous mix-up. There hadn't. I'm going to need copies of every document. I can submit the request today. Of course. I ended the call. The silence inside the house felt strange. The refrigerator hummed. The kitchen clock clicked once every second. Outside, Emily laughed as our neighbor complimented the flowers. Nothing about the world looked different. Everything about mine had changed. I picked up my phone. Instead of marching outside and confronting her, I opened the voice recorder. July 8th. 10:23 in the morning. My own voice sounded unfamiliar. The bank confirmed a second mortgage I never approved. Emily is currently outside planting flowers. She appears unaware that I've received the notice. I stopped recording. Then I photographed every page of the letter. Front. Back. Envelope. Postmark. After that, I logged into our online banking. No second loan appeared. That almost made me feel better. Almost. Then I remembered. Different lenders. Different portals. Different debts. I took screenshots anyway. Every account balance. Every payment. Every notification. Next, I enabled fraud alerts on my credit profile. If someone tried opening anything else, I'd know immediately. Only then did I walk outside. Emily smiled before I reached her. You're home early. I got something interesting in the mail. She brushed dirt from her gloves. Oh? A notice about a second mortgage. Her smile disappeared. For less than a second. Then it came back. So that's what this is about. What does that mean? She sighed dramatically. I wondered when they'd finally send one of those. I blinked. You knew? It's just paperwork. Paperwork? The bank mixed up some records months ago. You never mentioned it. Because it wasn't important. She stood and kissed my cheek. Her perfume carried the familiar scent of vanilla. Normally it calmed me. Today it felt suffocating. You've been working too much. She smiled again. You're making this into something it isn't. I stared at her. I called the bank. Her shoulders stiffened. Only slightly. What did they say? They said we have another mortgage. Emily folded her arms. I can't believe you'd believe strangers before your own wife. That sentence lingered between us. Not because it answered anything. Because it answered nothing. People who tell the truth usually explain. People hiding something usually attack the question. I asked if I signed it. And? They said paperwork exists. She laughed softly. There you go. There I go where? See? She shrugged. Paperwork. Emily. What? If there's paperwork. She interrupted me. Then we'll ask them to fix it. So you've seen these documents? She hesitated. Barely. I've dealt with enough banks to know they're always making mistakes. That wasn't an answer. The rest of the afternoon felt rehearsed. Emily made coffee. Asked about my day. Talked about replacing the patio furniture. Mentioned a television show she'd started watching. Not once did she ask what the notice actually said. Not once did she ask how much money was involved. Not once did she ask why the bank believed we owed them anything. It was as if she already knew. That evening I forwarded every financial email from our shared account to a private address she'd never seen. I downloaded 5 years of statements. Saved copies to an encrypted folder. Then another copy onto an external drive locked inside my office safe. If I was wrong, I'd delete everything. If I wasn't going to lose evidence. The following afternoon my phone rang. It was my father-in-law. Emily says you're accusing her of fraud. I asked about a mortgage. He sighed. You always jump to conclusions. I received legal notice. I'm sure there's an explanation. So am I. Then stop upsetting my daughter. I'd like someone to explain why another loan exists. Silence. Then, marriage requires trust. I agree. So trust your wife. The call ended. An hour later, my mother-in-law texted. Emily has done everything for this family. Don't let stress ruin your marriage. No question. No curiosity. Just defense. It struck me that Emily had already spoken to them. She hadn't tried explaining things to me. She built support around herself first. That night I barely slept. I lay awake listening to the ceiling fan. Every slow rotation seemed louder than the last. Beside me, Emily slept peacefully. At least she looked peaceful. I remembered the day we'd bought this house. She'd squeezed my hand so tightly during closing that our knuckles turned white. She cried when we got the keys. We finally have a forever home, she'd whispered. I'd believed every word. Now I wondered which promises had been real, and which had simply been rehearsed. The next morning my phone buzzed before sunrise. An email from the bank. Requested documentation has been processed. Attached were 6 files. I opened the first. Loan application. Property information. Borrower details. Everything matched. Then I reached the signature page. My name was there. It looked like my signature. Until I stared long enough. The angle of the final letter was wrong. The spacing wasn't mine. Someone had practiced it. Someone had come frighteningly close. But it wasn't mine. I kept reading. Halfway down the final page, one line stopped me cold. Loan origination date, 11 months earlier. 11 months. Nearly a full year. The betrayal hadn't begun with the letter. The letter had simply arrived too late. I enlarged the signature until individual pixels became visible. The first letter looked close. The last stroke didn't. I'd signed thousands of documents over the years. Contracts. Insurance forms. Closing papers. Birthday cards. That wasn't how my hand finished my name. Someone had copied the shape. They hadn't copied the habit. I closed the laptop. Then opened it again. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to find one page proving this entire nightmare had started with a clerical mistake. Instead, I found another document. Electronic signing history. Date. Time. IP address. Device identification. Every line made the loan appear perfectly legitimate. Too perfect. I drove to the lender's local office before they opened. The morning air felt unusually cold against my face. My coffee had already gone lukewarm by the time the doors unlocked. A receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile. "Good morning. I need to speak with someone about a mortgage opened under my name." She asked for identification. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from a loan officer named Daniel. He scanned the file on his monitor. His expression changed almost immediately. "What seems to be the concern?" "I never authorized this loan." He looked back at the screen. "I understand." "No. I don't think you do." "I assure you I do." His voice became quieter. "There are situations where documents deserve a closer review." That sentence caught my attention. "You think something's wrong?" "I didn't say that." "You almost did." He folded his hands. "Our fraud department handles those determinations." "So you're sending this to them?" "If you're stating the authorization wasn't yours." "Yes." "I'm formally documenting that today." He nodded once. "I'll start the process. I'd like copies of everything. We'll provide everything legally available. I also want to know who attended the closing." "I'm afraid I can't disclose that today." "Why not?" "Because the review has only just begun." His answer sounded careful. Too careful. Like someone choosing every word. Before leaving, he quietly slid a business card across the desk. "If you remember anything unusual from last year." He paused. "Call me directly." On the drive home, my phone rang. "Emily." I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey. Where are you?" "Running errands." "You sound tired." "I didn't sleep much." "I know." She sighed softly. "I've been thinking." "About?" "You've been under so much pressure lately." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Her voice turned gentle. Almost comforting. "I think all this overtime is affecting you." I frowned. "What does that have to do with another mortgage?" "You've been forgetting little things." "I haven't forgotten signing away our house." "I didn't say you did." "You implied it." She laughed lightly. "I just don't want you working yourself into a panic." It was a different tactic. Yesterday she dismissed the problem. Today she questioned my memory. When I got home, lunch was already waiting on the table. Emily smiled. "I made your favorite." Normally I'd have kissed her. Instead I sat quietly. She watched me take the first bite. "I hate seeing you upset." "Then answer one question." "I've answered plenty." "No." I looked directly at her. "You've avoided every important one." She folded her napkin. "What do you want to know? Were you present when this mortgage was signed?" She looked genuinely surprised. "I don't even remember." I didn't respond. She continued. "Last year was stressful." "So that's your answer?" "I honestly can't remember every appointment we've ever attended." Another non-answer. That afternoon I logged into our shared email account. Nothing looked unusual. Until I searched the lender's name. 3 deleted messages appeared in the trash archive. Not inbox. Not sent. Deleted. Each notification confirmed communication between the lender and Emily. None had ever been forwarded to me. I exported every email. Then forwarded them to my private account. After that, I downloaded every attachment. Finally, I stored another backup on a cloud account only I controlled. If anything disappeared later, I'd still have it. Around dinner time, our longtime friends Mark and Olivia stopped by unexpectedly. Emily had invited them. Neither of them knew I'd spent the morning at the bank. Mark handed me a bottle of wine. "Tough week?" "You could say that." Emily squeezed my shoulder. "He's convinced the bank made some huge mistake." Olivia smiled sympathetically. "Financial institutions mess things up all the time. I hope that's all this is." Emily looked at me with concerned eyes. "You've been forgetting appointments lately." I turned toward her. "When?" You forgot your dentist. It was rescheduled. You forgot our dinner with my parents. I was stuck at the airport. She tilted her head. See? Mark chuckled awkwardly. We're all getting older. I stared at Emily. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was quietly building a picture of me. Forgetful. Distracted. Unreliable. After they left, I stood in the kitchen washing dishes. Emily walked beside me. I was only trying to help. By telling our friends my memory's failing? I never said failing. You wanted them thinking it. She leaned against the counter. I want people to understand you're under pressure. I don't need witnesses. I was protecting you. No. I turned off the faucet. You were explaining me before anyone asked questions. For the first time that day. She didn't answer. The following morning my fraud alert sent a notification. No new accounts. That was reassuring. Then another email arrived from Daniel. Additional documentation is now available. Inside was the electronic signature certificate. Timestamp. Authentication log. Device information. I compared the signature beside an older mortgage document from years earlier. The difference was subtle. Almost invisible. The spacing between the first and second letters. The angle beneath the final stroke. The pressure pattern. Someone looking quickly would never notice. I noticed. I called Daniel immediately. I've compared both signatures. And? They're different. He remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he said quietly, I noticed something as well. My throat tightened. What? The authentication records don't completely match our normal lending process. What does that mean? It means. He lowered his voice. I think you were right to come in. That afternoon, I received another unexpected call. Emily's younger brother, Ryan. I heard what's going on. So did everyone else? He sighed. Emily says you're spiraling. I'm investigating alone. She thinks you're exhausted. What do you think? A long pause followed. I think. He hesitated. I've never known her to lie. Neither had I. Until now. That evening I sat alone in my office. The house felt strangely quiet. I opened the signature comparison one more time. Side by side. Old. New. Real. Fake. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. Fear was giving way to something steadier. Focus. Then I noticed one detail I'd overlooked before. The electronic certificate listed the device used to complete the signing. It wasn't my laptop. It wasn't my phone. It wasn't any device I'd ever owned. Someone hadn't just copied my signature. They'd signed my name from a machine that had never belonged to me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid anymore. Because my mind wouldn't stop connecting pieces I'd ignored for almost a year. Emily had insisted on handling the household paperwork. She'd started checking the mail before I got home. She'd even convinced me to switch most of our bills to digital statements because, in her words, it's easier when one person manages everything. At the time, it sounded responsible. Now it sounded strategic. The next morning I met with a forensic document examiner named Grace. She didn't promise miracles. She simply asked for every signature I could legally provide. Old tax returns, insurance forms, the original mortgage paperwork, Christmas cards, even a notebook where I'd signed my name dozens of times while testing a fountain pen years earlier. She spread everything across a large conference table. You'd be surprised what people can't fake. I hope you're right. She smiled faintly. They usually copy the signature. She tapped one of my old documents. They rarely copy the person. What do you mean? Everyone signs with habits. She pointed toward one page. You always hesitate before the last letter. I've never noticed. Most people don't. She slid the second mortgage papers beside it. This signature is trying too hard. So it isn't mine? She looked at me carefully. I won't give an official opinion until I'm finished. She paused. But if I were signing my own mortgage. She tapped the forged document. I wouldn't sign like this. For the first time in days, I felt something that almost resembled hope. Before leaving, Grace handed me a small notebook. Write your signature 20 times. Why? I want today's natural movement. I signed. Again. Again. By the 20th signature, my hand moved automatically. She compared them without saying a word. When I stood to leave, she finally spoke. Don't throw away anything. I wasn't planning to. Good. She closed the folder. Because this isn't over. Back at home, Emily was waiting in the kitchen. You've been gone all morning. I had meetings. What kind? The kind I should have had 11 months ago. She sighed dramatically. This obsession is getting unhealthy. I met a handwriting expert. For the first time. She stopped smiling. A what? A forensic examiner. She laughed. You actually hired someone? Yes. She shook her head. You're wasting money. I thought you'd be relieved. Why? If you're innocent. I looked directly at her. The report clears you. She looked away first. That evening she changed tactics again. She didn't deny anything. Instead, she rewrote our marriage. You know. She stirred her coffee slowly. I've carried this family for years. I stared at her. What does that have to do with a forged mortgage? You've always focused on work. I worked to pay our bills. And who handled everything else? She leaned back. Me. So because you managed the house, I managed our lives. She interrupted me. You never noticed half the problems I solved. I trusted you. You depended on me. No. I answered quietly. I respected you. Those weren't the same thing. Later that night, I searched our financial records again. This time I wasn't looking for the mortgage. I was looking for money. Every transfer over $5,000. Every unusual withdrawal. Every account I'd ignored because I believed someone else was watching them. Patterns began appearing. Large deposits. Then almost immediate transfers. Different destinations. Different dates. Always just far enough apart to avoid drawing attention. One account number appeared again and again. I didn't recognize it. The next morning I called the bank. I need transaction records tied to these wire transfers. I'll see what we can release. I'm also reporting potential identity fraud. We've noted that on your file. Daniel lowered his voice. Our investigators found additional financial activity connected to the loan. What kind? I can't discuss details yet. Can you tell me if the money stayed with the mortgage? A brief silence. No. That single word changed everything. The loan hadn't paid for the house. The money had gone somewhere else. I spent the afternoon building a timeline. Mortgage approval. Wire transfers. Deleted emails. My business trips. Something strange appeared. Nearly every major financial movement happened while I was out of state for work. Chicago. Denver. Seattle. Boston. Each trip matched another important date. It couldn't be coincidence. Not anymore. I printed everything. Every page. Every receipt. Every email. Then I spread them across my office floor. From the doorway they looked random. After 2 hours, they told a story. Not one mistake. A sequence. Every step depended on me trusting the previous one. That evening there was another knock at the door. Emily's younger sister, Lauren. She looked uncomfortable. I was nearby. You've never just happened to be nearby. She managed a nervous smile. Can we talk? Emily had gone grocery shopping. Lauren remained standing. I don't want to get involved. Then why are you here? She looked toward the front window before answering. I heard you're asking questions. I am. She nodded slowly. There were money problems. My chest tightened. What kind of problems? I don't know everything. You know something. Lauren rubbed her hands together. Emily said she was protecting the family? From what? I don't know. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She looked genuinely conflicted. I asked her once why she needed so much money. What did she say? Lauren swallowed. She told me. Her voice became quieter. That you'd never understand. Before I could ask another question, she walked toward the door. Lauren. She stopped. If you remember anything else. She nodded without turning around. I will. It wasn't much. But it wasn't blind loyalty anymore. For the first time, someone in Emily's family had admitted something didn't add up. After Lauren left, I returned to the wire transfers. One destination account kept repeating. Different amounts. Same routing information. I searched every document again. Finally, I found it. The account number appeared inside one of the deleted lender emails. It wasn't listed under Emily's name. It belonged to a company. Horizon Property Solutions LLC. I'd never heard of it. I searched through old papers. Nothing. Business records. Nothing. Personal contacts. Nothing. Yet tens of thousands of dollars had flowed toward that company. My phone vibrated. It was Daniel. We've confirmed one more detail. What is it? The account receiving a significant portion of the loan proceeds. He paused. Doesn't belong to you or your wife. My grip tightened around the phone. Then who owns it? I can't officially disclose the owner's identity yet. Can you tell me anything? Another pause. Only this. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. The owner appears to be connected to someone who attended the loan closing. I looked at the company name on the page in front of me. A stranger. Someone I'd never met. Someone who somehow walked away with money borrowed in my name. The second mortgage wasn't just a secret Emily had hidden from me. It had partners. I stared at the company name for nearly a minute. Horizon Property Solutions LLC. A business I'd never heard of. A business that somehow received money borrowed against my home. This wasn't a marriage falling apart anymore. It was a financial trail. I spent the next 2 days saying almost nothing to Emily. Not because I had given up. Because every unnecessary argument gave her another chance to adjust her story. She noticed the silence. You've barely spoken. I'm thinking. About the mortgage? About everything. She smiled politely. Thinking can become dangerous when you only look for evidence that agrees with you. That sentence stayed with me. She wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was trying to make me doubt my own judgment. Friday afternoon, Daniel called. The fraud review has expanded. Did you find the company owner? Not yet. But there are inconsistencies involving the loan appointments. What kind? The records show multiple in-person meetings before closing. I wasn't at any meetings. I know. The way he said those 2 words made my stomach tighten. You know, we've confirmed you were out of state during at least 2 documented appointments. I closed my eyes. So someone attended in my place. I can't officially say that. But you're thinking it. A long pause. I'm thinking someone wanted those appointments to appear normal. That evening Emily suggested we have dinner together. Just the 2 of us. She lit candles. Ordered my favorite steak from a restaurant downtown. Poured expensive wine. It looked like an anniversary dinner. Except neither of us smiled. She finally broke the silence. I miss us. So do I. We don't have to keep fighting. I'm asking questions. Questions can destroy a marriage. No. I met her eyes. Lies destroy marriages. She looked down at her glass. I don't know how we got here. I almost answered. Then I realized. That was exactly what she wanted. Another emotional conversation. Another distraction. Instead, I quietly finished my meal. The next morning I walked outside to collect the newspaper. Our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Collins, was trimming her roses. She waved. "Good morning, David." "Morning." She hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Were you traveling a lot last spring?" I nodded. "Almost every other week." "I thought so." "Why?" She frowned. "I kept seeing people stopping by your house." "What people?" "I assumed they were contractors." My pulse quickened. "What did they look like?" "I don't remember everyone." She thought for a moment. "There was one tall man in a gray suit." She pointed toward my driveway. "He parked right there." "I've never hired contractors." "I know that now." She looked embarrassed. "I asked Emily once." "What did she say?" She laughed. Mrs. Collins smiled awkwardly. "She said you were starting a property investment business." I felt the words settle heavily in my chest. Property investment. That explained the strange company. It explained why nobody questioned unfamiliar visitors. Emily had already created a believable story. Months before I knew I needed one. I thanked Mrs. Collins and went back inside. Instead of confronting Emily, I wrote everything down. Time. Date. Conversation. Every detail, while it was still fresh. Then I recorded another voice memo. Neighbor confirms multiple business visitors during my work trips. Emily told neighbors I was investing in property. Evidence. Not emotion. That had become my routine. Sunday afternoon we attended Emily's parents' barbecue. Normally I enjoyed these gatherings. This time every conversation felt rehearsed. Her father clapped me on the shoulder. "Feeling better?" "I wasn't sick," Emily answered before I could continue. "He's been stressed." Her mother nodded sympathetically. "We've all been worried." I realized something. Emily had spent weeks shaping everyone's opinion. By the time I spoke, they already believed they knew the story. Halfway through lunch, Ryan walked over carrying 2 drinks. He handed me one quietly. "We should talk." We stepped toward the back fence. He kept his voice low. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "I thought you were overreacting." "And now?" He looked across the yard at his sister. "I asked her some questions." "What happened?" "She got angry." "About the mortgage?" "I asked why she kept saying you'd forgotten everything." He sighed. She couldn't answer. That wasn't the full support I'd hoped for. But it wasn't blind defense anymore. Ryan had started doubting her. Exactly as the truth demanded. That evening Emily cornered me in the garage. The overhead light buzzed softly above us. "You've been talking to my brother," he called me. "What did you tell him?" "The truth." She folded her arms. "I don't appreciate you turning my family against me." "I haven't. They're asking questions now." "They should." Her expression hardened. For the first time, the kindness disappeared completely. "You really need to think this through." "I have." "No." She stepped closer. "You haven't." I waited. "If you keep digging." She lowered her voice. "You won't just hurt me." I said nothing. "You'll destroy everything we've built. Our home? Our future. Our reputation." I finally answered. "If the truth destroys it." I took a slow breath. "Then the lie built it." She stared at me for several seconds. Then walked away without another word. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't fake concern. It was the first subtle threat. Monday morning Daniel called again. "I've received permission to share part of the internal review." "I'm listening." "Our compliance department noticed unusual processing during the loan." "In what way?" "There were manual overrides." "I don't know what that means." "It means certain verification steps were bypassed." "By whom?" "I can't identify employees while the investigation is active." "But somebody noticed." "Yes." "And nobody stopped it." "They're asking that same question." An hour later I received another email. This one wasn't from Daniel. It came from Grace, the forensic document examiner. Her report was complete. My hands felt strangely calm opening the attachment. The report was thorough. Stroke comparisons, letter spacing, pen pressure habits, natural writing rhythm. Near the end, she reached her conclusion. The question's signature shows significant indicators of simulation and is inconsistent with the known genuine signatures provided for comparison. I read that sentence 3 times. Then once more. The fear I'd carried since the letter arrived finally shifted. Not into celebration. Into certainty. Someone had signed my name. And now I had an expert willing to say so. That afternoon, Daniel called one final time. "We've matched security access records from the lender. What did you find?" "The borrower attended 3 meetings before closing." "I wasn't there." "I know. Can you identify who was?" "Not officially." He paused. "But surveillance confirms your wife attended every meeting." I leaned back slowly. "Was she alone?" "No." The room became completely silent. "There was another individual with her." "Who?" "The footage isn't clear enough for positive identification." He hesitated. "But investigators believe it's the same person connected to Horizon Property Solutions." The company finally had a face. Not a name. Not yet. But it was no longer just paperwork. Someone had stood beside my wife through every step of the deception. The following morning, my attorney called before I had finished my first cup of coffee. They identified the owner. I set the mug down. "So Horizon Property Solutions isn't a shell anymore?" "No." He took a slow breath. "The managing partner is a man named Victor Hale." The name meant nothing to me. "Have we ever met?" "Not according to anything we found." "Then why was my house paying his company?" "That's the question investigators are asking." I sat in my office staring at the wall. A stranger had profited from debt placed in my name. It wasn't personal to him. To Victor, I was probably just another file. Another credit score. Another signature. That realization hurt more than I expected. For Emily, it had been personal. She knew exactly whose life she was gambling. That afternoon, I finally confronted her again. Not with accusations. With facts. I placed 3 folders on the dining room table. The handwriting report. The lender's timeline. The transaction history. Emily looked at them but didn't touch them. "What's this supposed to prove?" "You tell me." "I've already told you everything." "No." I slid the handwriting report toward her. "You've told me pieces." She glanced at the first page. Then looked away. "I don't understand those technical reports." "You don't have to." I kept my voice calm. "It says the signature isn't mine." She folded her arms. "Experts disagree all the time. It also says someone simulated it." Silence. "You still have time to tell me the truth." She laughed once. A short, tired laugh. "You think this is as simple as truth?" "I think it's simpler than lying." For nearly a minute she said nothing. Then her shoulders relaxed. "I never wanted this." It was the first admission of any kind. I waited. "I didn't plan for things to go this far." "What things?" "The mortgage." My heartbeat remained steady. "So you knew?" "I knew about the loan." "Did you forge my signature?" "I didn't say that." "You admitted knowing." "I had no choice." There it was. Not denial. Justification. "No choice?" She nodded slowly. "We needed money. We weren't broke." "You don't know everything." "Then explain it." She looked toward the window. "There were investments." "What investments?" "I thought they'd save us." "Save us from what?" "Our future." I almost smiled. "Our future wasn't in danger until someone borrowed against our home." She rubbed her forehead. "You'll never understand how much pressure I was under." "What pressure?" she whispered. "I couldn't fail." "Who is Victor Hale?" Her eyes widened. Just for a moment. "I don't know anyone by that name." I slid another page across the table. "The company receiving the transfers belongs to him." I've never heard of it. You just told me there were investments. I meant mutual funds. The money didn't go to mutual funds. She stood abruptly. I'm done having this conversation. No. I remained seated. We've only just started. She walked upstairs without another word. She had admitted knowing about the mortgage. She still refused to explain why. The next day, my attorney called again. Victor Hale has retained counsel. So he knows we're looking. He does. What is he saying? He claims he believed both homeowners approved every transaction. I leaned back. So Emily told him I agreed. Apparently. Can we prove otherwise? We're working on it. 2 days later, investigators arranged separate interviews. Mine came first. Victor's came after. I wasn't allowed inside. But later that evening, my attorney phoned. He changed his story. Already? He admitted Emily handled almost every conversation. What about me? He says he only met you once. I never met him. Exactly. Silence settled between us. Finally, he added. He described the man he met. What did he say? Different height. Different build. I closed my eyes. So someone pretended to be me. That's where the evidence is pointing. That night there was another knock at my door. Ryan stood outside. He looked exhausted. I talked to Emily. And? She finally admitted something. I stepped aside. He entered quietly. What did she tell you? She said she kept thinking she'd fix everything before you found out. I stared at him. Did she say what everything was? No. Did she mention Victor? He shook his head. But. He hesitated. She admitted the loan wasn't for the house. I exhaled slowly. Did she say where the money went? She wouldn't answer. Ryan looked genuinely disappointed. I defended her. I know. I thought she was protecting your marriage. What do you think now? He lowered his head. I think she was protecting herself. Another person had crossed the line from defense to doubt. The following afternoon, Daniel invited me back to the lender's office. He closed the conference room door before speaking. The financial tracing is almost complete. What did you find? He turned his monitor toward me. Colored lines connected multiple accounts. The money left the mortgage, passed through 2 intermediary businesses, then arrived at Horizon Property Solutions. It wasn't home repairs. No. It wasn't medical bills. No. It wasn't family expenses. He shook his head. The majority funded speculative real estate investments. I stared at the screen. She gambled our house. That's what the records suggest. My attorney looked at another folder. There's more. He handed me printed emails recovered during discovery. Most were between Emily and Victor. The earliest messages sounded professional. Later ones became urgent. Then desperate. One line caught my attention immediately. David's credit qualifies. Mine won't. I read it again. And again. Another message arrived 3 weeks later. Once the refinance closes, we'll recover everything before he notices. My throat tightened. She hadn't chosen my name because she loved me. She had chosen it because my credit score opened doors hers couldn't. I wasn't her partner. I had become her financial credential. That evening Emily was waiting in the living room. She looked tired. No makeup. No carefully rehearsed smile. Just exhaustion. I know they've been talking to you. They have. I'll tell you something. I sat across from her. I'm listening. I believed the investments would double. When? Within months. They didn't. She shook her head. No. So you borrowed more. I thought I could recover. You borrowed using my identity. Tears filled her eyes. I was trying to protect us. I answered quietly. You protected a secret. She covered her face. I never wanted to lose you. You started losing me the day you signed my name. The next morning my attorney called before sunrise. I've received one final document. What is it? It wasn't in the mortgage file. What file? The family court file. I frowned. I've never filed for divorce. You didn't. A long silence followed. Then he said the words that explained everything. Emily hired a divorce attorney 4 months ago. My chest tightened. There are unsigned draft settlement papers. What do they say? They assign responsibility for the second mortgage to you. I closed my eyes. The investments had failed. The debt had remained. And while I was still believing we were building a future together, she had already been preparing a future where I would be left with the house and all of the debt attached to it. The conference room was quieter than I expected. No dramatic speeches. No shouting. Just the soft sound of folders sliding across a polished table. Daniel sat on one side. My attorney sat beside me. Across from us were Emily, her lawyer, Victor Hale, and his attorney. The fraud investigators had already completed their review. Today wasn't about speculation. It was about evidence. Daniel opened the first folder. We've completed the internal investigation. Nobody interrupted him. We compared authentication records, device histories, communication logs, transaction trails, and the independent handwriting examination. He placed several documents in the center of the table. Our findings are consistent. Emily stared at the papers without touching them. Victor looked at his attorney. Either of them spoke. My attorney nodded toward me. You don't need to say anything unless you're asked. I know. For weeks I'd imagined this moment. I'd imagined yelling, demanding answers. Instead, I felt strangely calm. The anger had already done its job. Now facts could finish it. One investigator spoke next. The device used to complete the electronic signature has been identified. Emily's lawyer looked up. It was not registered to Mr. Carter. The investigator continued. It was traced to hardware used during meetings attended by Mrs. Carter. Silence. Another page slid across the table. The IP address, login records, and appointment schedule all correspond with those meetings. Emily slowly closed her eyes. Victor finally cleared his throat. I honestly believed he had approved everything. The investigator looked toward him. That statement conflicts with recovered emails. Victor swallowed. My understanding changed after seeing the complete file. My attorney leaned forward. So let's make this simple. He held up a printed email. You received this message. Victor nodded reluctantly. The attorney read aloud. David doesn't know yet. We'll straighten everything out before he notices. He lowered the page. When you received that email. He paused. Did you believe Mr. Carter had authorized the loan? Victor looked down. No. Why not? Because. His voice almost disappeared. If he had authorized it, there'd be nothing to hide. The room fell silent again. Emily turned toward Victor. You said you'd stand by me? Victor answered without looking at her. I said I'd tell the truth. You promised. I promised before I saw everything. She shook her head. So you're just protecting yourself now? He finally looked at her. We both should have protected him. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't loyalty. It was the first completely honest sentence I'd ever heard from him. Daniel opened another folder. The tracing analysis has concluded. Colored charts covered the pages. The proceeds from the second mortgage passed through intermediary accounts before funding speculative real estate purchases. He pointed toward one highlighted transaction. None of the funds were applied toward improvements on the marital residence. Another page. The majority of the investment losses occurred within 4 months. Another page. Following those losses, draft divorce documents were prepared. Emily's attorney quietly closed his notebook. He had no questions. Emily finally looked at me. I was going to fix it. I answered softly. When? She hesitated. I don't know. You've had 11 months. I kept thinking the next investment would recover everything. The next investment? She nodded through tears. I couldn't admit I'd already lost so much. So every bad decision justified another one. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Ryan entered the conference room a few minutes later. He'd been asked to wait outside until investigators finished. Emily looked relieved to see him. Ryan! He raised a hand gently. No. She froze. I defended you. His voice was steady. I told David he was imagining things. She lowered her head. I'm sorry. I know you are. He looked at the documents spread across the table. But these papers don't lie. Then he turned toward me. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. I do. He took a slow breath. I asked you to trust her? He glanced briefly toward his sister. I should have asked her to earn that trust. A few minutes later, Lauren walked in. She stopped after seeing the evidence. Her eyes filled with tears. So it was true, Emily whispered. I never wanted any of this. Lauren shook her head. You kept asking everyone to believe you. She looked down at the recovered emails. You never asked anyone to look at the facts. That was all she said. But it was enough. Both of Emily's siblings had crossed the line completely. No more excuses. Only truth. The lead investigator gathered the remaining documents. Our recommendation has been finalized. Everyone looked toward him. The available evidence supports fraudulent authorization of the second mortgage. He paused. The lender has begun corrective procedures. Emily slowly covered her mouth. Victor leaned back in his chair. Neither argued. There wasn't anything left to argue. After the meeting ended, people quietly began leaving. No dramatic confrontation. No raised voices. Just exhausted footsteps. Emily stopped beside me in the hallway. Please! I turned toward her. Don't let them think I'm some monster. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I answered. I never wanted anyone to think that. She looked hopeful. I wanted them to know exactly what happened. Her shoulders slumped. I loved you. I believe you. She looked surprised. I also believe you lied to me. A tear rolled down her cheek. I was afraid. I know. I thought if I admitted everything. She struggled to finish. You'd leave. I nodded slowly. You lost me long before today. Victor walked past us toward the exit. He stopped beside me. I'm sorry. I looked at him. For what? For seeing your credit score before I saw you. He waited. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything useful left to say. He gave a small nod and walked away. Outside, the afternoon sun felt warmer than it had in weeks. My attorney handed me one final folder. Keep this somewhere safe. I looked inside. The handwriting report. The transaction analysis. The recovered emails. The authentication logs. Every piece of evidence that had transformed suspicion into proof. Weeks earlier, those papers had terrified me. Now, they gave me peace. My phone vibrated. A message from Daniel. The lender has officially suspended collection activity related to the disputed mortgage pending final legal resolution. I smiled for the first time since the envelope had arrived. Not because I'd won. Because the truth had finally caught up with the lie. Before driving home, I opened my phone and recorded one last voice memo. Day 38. I listened to the quiet breeze moving through the parking lot. When this started, I thought revenge meant making someone suffer. I paused. I was wrong. I closed my eyes for a second. Revenge was never the point. It was making sure the truth survived long enough to be believed. If receipts matter more than excuses, comment receipts. Because in the end, evidence speaks far louder than anger. I started the engine. For the first time in over a month. I wasn't driving toward another argument. I was driving toward the rest of my life. 3 months passed before everything finally settled. Not emotionally. Legally. The lender completed its investigation. The second mortgage remained frozen while the forged authorization was addressed through the proper legal process. For the first time since that envelope arrived, I could open my mailbox without feeling my stomach tighten. My attorney called one Friday afternoon. It's finished. I leaned back in my chair. What does finished mean? The lender has accepted the investigation's findings. I closed my eyes. And? The disputed mortgage is no longer being enforced against you while the fraud findings are implemented. I didn't celebrate. I simply sat there listening to my own breathing. For weeks, every phone call had carried another problem. This one carried relief. I walked through the house that evening. Every room looked exactly the same. The living room. The hallway. The kitchen where I'd first unfolded that terrible letter. Nothing had changed. Except me. I finally understood something. A house isn't built by signatures. It's built by trust. And once trust disappears, the walls never feel quite the same. Emily moved out shortly afterward. Our final conversations were quiet. No accusations. No dramatic speeches. Just two people standing at the end of choices that could no longer be undone. She picked up one last box from the hallway. I never imagined this ending. I nodded. Neither did I. I wish I could change it. I believe you. She looked surprised. You do? I believe you wish the outcome were different. I paused. I don't believe you wished for honesty soon enough. She lowered her eyes. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I didn't answer. Some regrets belong to the people who create them. A week later, Ryan called. I was wondering if you'd meet me. We met at a small coffee shop. He looked uncomfortable. I've replayed everything in my head. So have I. I should have listened. You listened eventually. Too late. I smiled faintly. Most people never change their minds. He shook his head. I defended my sister because she was family. I understand. I forgot that truth deserves loyalty too. That sentence stayed with me long after we left. Lauren mailed me a handwritten note. It wasn't long. Just one page. I kept thinking love meant believing someone without question. Now I know love also means telling someone when they're wrong. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the same folder that held the evidence. Different papers. Same lesson. A month later I replaced the old mailbox. The original one still worked. But every time I looked at it, I remembered the envelope. The silence. The phone call. The moment my life split into before and after. The new mailbox wasn't expensive. It wasn't symbolic to anyone else. But to me, it marked the place where I stopped ignoring small warnings. I kept the original bank notice. Not in a drawer. Not hidden away. Inside a clearly labeled evidence folder. Every few months I opened it. Not because I wanted to relive the pain. Because I never wanted to forget how quietly betrayal had arrived. No explosions. No dramatic confession. Just one ordinary envelope. People often ask what hurt the most. The forged signature? The debt? The planned divorce? The answer surprises them. It wasn't any of those. It was realizing how many opportunities there had been to tell the truth. One conversation could have changed everything. One honest sentence. Instead, every lie demanded another lie. Until the truth had no choice but to force its way into the room. Several months later I stood on my front porch just before sunset. Warm light stretched across the driveway. The lavender Emily had planted was still blooming. For a moment I considered pulling it out. Then I laughed quietly. The flowers hadn't betrayed me. People had. So I left them exactly where they were. Some reminders don't need to disappear. They simply need new meaning. I took out my phone and played the very first voice memo I'd recorded. July 8th. 10:23 in the morning. I listened to the fear in my own voice. The uncertainty. The confusion. Then I played the last recording. The difference wasn't confidence. It was clarity. Evidence had replaced doubt. Truth had replaced fear. That was the real victory. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this: never confuse trust with silence. Trust grows stronger when questions can be answered. Silence only protects secrets. And secrets eventually collect interest. Just like hidden debt. So that's my story. A single bank notice exposed a second mortgage. That mortgage uncovered forged documents. Those documents uncovered hidden investments. And those investments revealed a marriage built on promises that one person had quietly abandoned. In the end, I didn't win because someone else lost. I found peace because I stopped arguing with excuses and started following facts. That changed everything. If you've ever uncovered a betrayal that everyone else dismissed at first, share your story in the comments. Someone reading it today might realize they're not imagining the warning signs in their own life. And if you enjoy stories where patience, evidence, and truth matter more than revenge alone, stay with Family Betrayal Verdict. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with a shout. Sometimes it arrives in a plain white envelope.